The religious climate in Australia is a fascinating landscape. It's a very diverse country, but we have a rapidly growing movement of non-religious, of people identifying as non-religious. So in 2016, our national census, if my memory serves, was about 30% saying that they were non-religious. In the 21 survey census, that had grown to just under 40%. And we have another census coming up next year in 26. And we have no reason to think that that trend is going to be any other than an upwards trajectory. The rise of the seculars has definitely radicalised the opposition. Australia watches the US very closely, and as the political landscape has deteriorated in the US, we have seen the same trend, the same extremism, the same tendency to head towards Christian nationalism, even though we have this growing group of non-religious. While we have made some progress, we now have voluntary assisted dying legislation across all states and territories. There have been moves from some states to criminalise abortion past 20 weeks. Fortunately, in both cases, they didn't succeed, but there's definitely efforts by the right wing. We also had Scott Morrison, our previous Prime Minister, tried to pass a Religious Discrimination Act that would enable employers and hospitals to fire at will, to enforce their religious beliefs on their employees. There was a very strong movement against that, and I'm very proud to say that Recovering from Religion Australia wrote a 4-page letter to the Parliamentary Committee, and that discrimination bill did not pass. But there's certainly been strong efforts to enforce religiosity on the general public. So my religious background, I was raised third generation Jehovah's Witness, which means I had no exposure to any other belief system or ideology. It was all I knew, which means no birthdays, Christmas, Easter, Valentine's Day, Father's Day, Mother's Day, no celebrations whatsoever. But more importantly, it's the culture that you're raised in, that you are told you are special, you are unique. I was the only Jehovah's Witness child at school, and I felt that obligation heavily. I would look at my classmates and think, if I don't tell them about the Bible and about Jesus and about Jehovah and about the paradise after Armageddon, they're all going to die at Armageddon and their blood is going to be on my hands. You are told as a child that your school environment is your special preaching territory. That's a lot of pressure to put on a kid, and it messes with your head to think those thoughts. The kids didn't know what to do with me, so it was very isolating. I was taken out of every birthday celebration, every school assembly. Singing the national anthem is out of the question, saluting the flag is out of the question, so you're just constantly challenged every single day. You're different. I think what people know about Jehovah's Witnesses is obviously very limited. Jehovah's Witnesses are known for their preaching, their knocking on doors, their carts now, and they're also probably most well known for refusing blood transfusions. I think there is a huge misconception that they are a benign religion, because you meet Jehovah's Witnesses, they're nice people, they're friendly, they know how to talk and communicate, they seem lovely, they seem harmless. They are not. It is an extremely controlling religion. Women have no autonomy whatsoever. It is a very misogynistic and patriarchal religion. Women are defined by their relationship with men. They believe complementarianism, that Eve was created as a complement to Adam, that was her sole purpose, and a single woman is pitiable in the Jehovah's Witness world. Everything is dictated for you. Higher education is out. Pursuing a career is looked down on. How you dress, how you express yourself, the books you read, the music you listen to, who you associate with, everything is controlled to the smallest detail and judged. And of course, the other thing that I suppose I would want to say is that Jehovah's Witnesses shun. So if you dare to question, it's an extremely isolated and lonely experience because you know you're not safe. You know you can't mention a question at all because that means a lack of faith, and then that means you're not safe to be around. And since you can't have friends outside of the religion, it's a really difficult spot to be in at that point. So when I started to question because of a set of circumstances that had happened. And I'll keep it as succinct as I can, but my husband at the time, he initially started questioning. And in a rather dramatic sequence of events, he was exposed as an apostate. He had an employee that was working with him at the time, and she fossicked around on his computer and found that he was still logged into an ex-Jehovah's Witness website. She went to the elders immediately. They had an emergency meeting. She resigned the next day without telling us why. And he then had to tell me that why this was happening was because he was looking on apostate sites, and my world just stopped. I knew what was expected of me. I would be expected to continue going to meetings on my own now. I'd be the pitiable woman without a spiritual head. And I knew that he would be villainized as the worst of the worst. But I saw someone who was struggling. He was at a crisis point, and the more I questioned him, the more I began to realize, oh, this goes way deeper. This is not just he's questioning the Jehovah's Witnesses. He doesn't believe in the Bible anymore or in God. I stopped going to meetings because I was so disgusted at the treatment that he was being given, the witch hunt that ensued, the elders that were calling me to get information out of me so that they could disfellowship him. 18 months later, I finally got the courage to read the Australian Royal Commission report into institutional response to child sexual abuse. And the Jehovah's Witnesses were case study 29 and 54. And when I read that report and realised the scope, the enormity of the sexual abuse that they were covering up, the house of cards completely fell apart, just totally fell apart. It can't be the truth. It can't be the truth and they be doing that. Like, I couldn't think of anything worse. And then shortly after that, the rest of all of the theology collapsed. I was very lucky because I had him to talk to, but I didn't talk to anyone else. I couldn't tell my parents. I couldn't say anything to anyone. I didn't even tell my work colleagues. It was really hard. I needed therapy. I needed a lot of support. But as I say, I was very fortunate because I had my husband to talk to, and most people don't have that. It is extremely isolating. I describe the leaving religion process as having two phases. The first phase is the doctrine, the theology, breaking that down, working out, okay, now what do I believe and what method am I going to use to make those decisions, decide what my core values are and, what do I think about abortion? What do I think about all these different things? You work through that process. And then you realise there's this whole other process to work out, which is incredibly personal. I began to realise, oh, I'm a woman and I can decide for myself what that means now. I don't need a man to tell me who I am, how I should be. I don't have to ask for permission. I can decide for myself. And that was so liberating and so exciting because I started to do things. I started my own company. I started working for myself. I started employing staff. I volunteer with Recovering from Religion, and I learned that I could use my voice to speak out. Child sexual abuse is a really very close subject for me. I was not an abuse survivor. I did not have that happen. But as I listened to the stories of those that did and I saw their trauma, I felt that I could be an ally and use my voice to raise awareness on that problem and to try to put the words out there that they were having trouble doing, that they didn't feel safe to do. I'm still on that journey. I'm still working out who I am and how I identify and how I can use my voice, but I'm loving the journey. I started volunteering with Recovering from Religion just before COVID, so early 2020, started the first support group in Sydney. I had connected with a lot of former Jehovah's Witnesses, but I learned that community can be too insular and it can become toxic, hurt people. When I found Recovering from Religion and had exposure to so many different ideas and religions, I began to hear these stories and recognize, okay, the doctrine and the theory might be different, but the behaviors and the control mechanisms are shockingly similar. So volunteering for Recovering from Religion very quickly became part of my therapy. It became part of a healthy way for me to put my religious trauma in context. I get way more out of whatever I do for Recovering from Religion than I put in. Okay, let's fast forward. January 21, we've got now a core of volunteers in Australia that are wanting to really promote RFR. And I get invited onto the board, the US board, as the International Development Director. Hey, I'm a woman, and this is still very amusing to me. And we set about setting up Recovering from Religion in Australia so that we could bring all of the programs, all of the resources to help this rising demographic of the non-religious. To someone who is just starting this, I know how terrifying and alone you will feel. What I want you to know is you are not alone. There are so many others out there that understand what you are experiencing. Don't minimize it. Don't belittle it. It's huge. It's enormous. This goes to the very core of your being, and it affects all of the relationships and dynamics around you. You're not alone. Reach out, get support. Recovering from Religion has a helpline. We have an online chat. We have support groups. We have a resources library. We can help put you in connection with others in a very safe way. Our private Slack communities are moderated. You can be you safely. You can ask those questions. You can seek those answers. We are not about the end position. We're not about you have to become an atheist. No. We are about helping you, meeting you where you're at on your journey. Where you end up is up to you. That's your choice. We just want to hold your hand through it. This is why the bridge is the logo, because we just want to be on the other side of the bridge, holding out a hand, help you come across, give you the resources and the tools you need to do so, and help you rebuild community.